Hello and good evening. Thank you everybody for joining the ATI Podcast again here. We are on Season 2, Episode 16. I've got Josh co-host here as usual.
Evening, Governor.
And we've got a evening, sir. And we've got a very special guest, and that is the Mr. ZACH WEISS of Cranial Nerve. How you doing, Zach?
Woo! Doing good.
Long time, buddy.
Me, guys.
Solid, good dude. I've been really looking forward to having you on the show, Zach, and I know that there was just so much shenanigans and old stories and show stories and stuff that we can get into, and we definitely will today. But first, one of the first things I wanted to get into is kind of at least my memory of how I met you, and you can tell things from your perspective as well. But I know at least it probably wasn't like on an official basis, but it certainly was through the music scene in Farmington. So we're talking the Mineral area music scene in Southeast Missouri. Right. And I came out to one of the shows that you did, I believe, at the Rock House in 2005. And I'm very confident it was Shatter Mask or Shatter Mask adjacent show that you did there. And, and I came to several shows after that you had put on, and eventually down the road began working together and doing some shows together. So that's kind of my early memories of you and our relationship and how that budded. Is that kind of how you remember it?
Yeah. Like, I was always doing Shatter Mask shows, so that
that doesn't stand out, right?
Any time, but yeah, the
right.
Rock House, it rings a bell. So
yeah. So I know that you've got quite the eclectic, experience and 20 plus years, I'd say, promoting shows, live events, that sort of stuff. Specifically, but I know, like, kind of as far as your professional career, your adult life, things started off for you in the service, right?
Yeah.
You served. What branch of the military were you in?
I was a Navy hospital corpsman.
Oh, it's awesome.
All right.
Yeah, so I was kind of like Navy and Marine Corps at the same time, if that makes any sense. Like,
sure.
The Marine Corps, they don't have their own medics, so they borrow them from the Navy, essentially. Like, in layman's terms, that's just the best way to kind of put it. So, So that's what kind of happened. And
how long did you serve, Zach?
5 years.
A very pleasant experience for you, or good life experiences, or glass half full, glass half empty? How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, there are a lot of times I would want to go back and do it all over again, and there are times I'd like to forget it. That's just kind of how.
For sure.
Yeah.
Was that like in the late 90s when you served, or?
Yeah. So I joined in 97, and I got out like right after like 9/11. So yeah.
So were you stationed anywhere exciting?
Yeah. So I was actually, my first like real duty station was Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. We did a deployment to Okinawa, Japan, and that lasted 6 months. Went to mainland Japan on that deployment for a month, which was awesome, Mount Fuji. So we came back to the United States, and then shortly thereafter, we went on a Mediterranean cruise. So, I mean, we're talking like France, Spain, Italy, Malta.
Beautiful.
It was pretty cool. Then I got back from that, and then I got stationed in Chicago, at Great Lakes, Illinois, at the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, like.
All right.
You got to see some stuff.
Working in the medical clinic, seeing recruits that had runny little noses. Their tummy hurt.
Quite the different action compared to the deployments and abroad, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
How was Japan life for you? Man, I don't want to gloss
Yeah,
over
no
that.
joke.
Japan was awesome. Like what I can remember of it.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, what we had to do was either exercise or drink. And like I wasn't going to
Did both.
exercise any more than I had to. So
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. This is the man, Josh, that turned me on to Keystone Light right
Oh
here.
shit.
So he's totally responsible for my experiences with Keystone Light. That little run in our friendship that I was drinking Keystone Light. This guy set me up
I'll
with
definitely
that.
never
Set me down the path of the cheap
won't
beer.
forget those days.
hey, that's awesome. Like Keystone Light at one time, they should have like endorsed me because I was, a big time income source for them. I haven't had any kind of alcohol for like almost 100 days now, though. So
Well,
That's
good for
awesome,
you.
dude.
yeah, I quit cold turkey. So
Did you just do it for health reasons, or you mind me asking, or
well, like realistically, what happened is I'm 45 and I was partying like I was 25, and
just
it just
catching up with
kind
you?
of catches up. And like
Right.
I'm in a live show environment like all the time, and like your buddy owns the bar and the show
Yeah.
does well, and then the bottle of whiskey comes out, and then I just
Yeah.
can't live like that. So
Yeah.
Understandable, yeah.
I understand, man.
yeah,
Yeah. Life's kind of gone that way for me as well. I mean, I'm not, completely done drinking, but I don't drink like I used to. That's for sure. And the older you get, man, you just don't bounce back like you used
Yeah.
to. You know,
absolutely.
you have a few too many, and you wake up the next day, you feel like shit.
Right.
And I can't put myself in the condition to not take care of my kids. So I've got a 1-year-old specifically, and to have a hangover and take care of a 1-year-old is a nightmare.
Yeah, and
So
so what happened to me is like I'll come clean. I'll spill the beans. Like it was a Thursday night. My buddy and I, we were at a show at a venue, and that show got over with, and he said, "Hey, you're new to Iowa. Let me show you some bars I used to bartend at." So that one show turned into like 4 bars that night.
Oh, damn.
So that's Thursday into Friday. Well, I get home at like 4:30. I go to work still pretty drunk.
wow.
I have a show that Friday at his bar. Like I was at his bar, and so show does pretty well, and we leave at 5:30 a.m. Well, I get a mile up the road and I fall asleep at a stoplight.
Oh,
And
damn.
so needless to say, like I'm not going to go any further with that story.
I got you. Yeah,
I
totally
didn't get
understand.
into any kind of trouble or anything, but I realized, hey, dude, knock it off. This is stupid.
Yeah,
And I wasn't drunk, wasn't intoxicated, but I had just been going too hard and I was exhausted.
sure, sure,
Right.
sure. Yeah, it really gets hard to know that line and when not to cross it. And whenever you're having fun, you take down your walls and maybe some of your triggers to not do certain things. And I know I can speak from experience. I've done very similar things in the sense that, like, you're out with buddies, you say, I'm not going to drink. One drink turns, and then, oh, I'll have a drink, and that turns into 5 drinks. And then all of a sudden, just like you depicted, it's 5 a.m. I got to work the next day, and then the next day comes around and, oh, I got a show to do or whatever the case is. I mean, I've been there, man. I know all about it. And, there ain't no way. I'm getting ready to turn 36, and I can barely do it now,
Right.
if at all. And I could just imagine it at 45 trying to do it. So I understand completely,
Yeah.
man.
Well, and I mean, quite honestly, living in Iowa it's almost like being on vacation from Southeast Missouri, to be honest with you. So it's
Yeah.
like every night was a celebration when I would go to an outdoor show, and like
Yeah.
it still seems surreal that I don't live in Park Hills, Missouri anymore,
Sure.
Right.
but it was like every night was a special occasion. Let's celebrate, and
Right.
there comes a time where it's like, hey, let's make some better decisions, and
Sure.
that hit me. So
Right.
Well, yeah, I can understand that totally, and I'm sure a lot of that was probably fostered in the military life, and then show promoting and doing shows and working with bands and stuff like that. That just kind of helps the interest in having a few beverages.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it does. Like I was definitely a lot looser at times when I would drink, but
yeah, sure,
got a
sure.
little robotic, you know,
Yeah,
right
I hear
after
you. It's all good, man. Hey, so once you got out of the military, I got to know, like, kind of when the show promoter aspect of things started for you, because, obviously it's an interest that you had to take at some point and say that this is something I'm going to do, like live events, show promotion, booking bands. You're a booker. I mean, you kind of wear multiple hats. Audio engineer, you do your own live audio. Where
Yeah.
did that start for you?
Well, it's a strange story. So when I was like 14 years old, I started playing Magic, the card game,
Hmm.
and Magic has a whole lot to do with my whole journey. So I was at a concert, or at a concert. I was at a Magic tournament actually, and my opponent was Perry from Shattermask,
Okay.
and so he had his hair was like dyed, and he has passed now, rest his soul, but he had like eyeshadow on and fingernail polish, and I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool. I'm like, that's awesome. And he's like, oh yeah, I had a show last night. I'm like, are you serious? A show? What are you talking about? It's like, oh, I'm in a band. And at that point, I was like, a band? What? So he was telling me yeah, we're from DeSoto and we play shows and whatnot. And I'm like, really? Tell me more about this. So it's like I had kind of just at that point discovered that, local bands existed. So
Yeah.
that was my daughter. She's 20 now. So she was just a couple months old at that point. So that was 20 years
Okay.
ago.
Wow.
Wow.
And, like, realistically, I didn't think anything would come of it. I wanted to just, it's like, hey, let's do a show. Like, let's
Yeah.
set up a show.
Yeah.
And so there were some kids in Farmington that would, they would throw shows at Long Memorial Hall there, the Farmington
Right.
City Hall. At the time, you could rent it for like $50. And so it's like we agreed we were going to do a show and there was nothing going to stop us. And
Right.
we did it. I put 4 bands on it. I remember it to this day. It was Shattermask, Torrance, Disference, and a band from St. Louis called State of Mind. Had no idea what we were doing at
Yeah.
all. None. Fortunately, there was a PA under the stage that was used at the time because nobody had any kind of like foresight to,
Sure.
like make
Get a
any
PA.
plans.
Yeah.
So we kind of did the thing. It happened, and
Yeah.
I remember like, all of our expenses were covered. All the bands were paid very well. And like I ended up leaving with like $14. So I'm like, wow, this is kind of a cool concept. And,
Yeah.
uh,
Definitely.
just it kind of snowballed from there. So realistically,
Yeah. So I would now whenever you first threw your show, and this might be like cart before the horse, but did you like already come up with this idea like I need to have a name for my production company and what I'm doing,
yeah.
or
So
how did that start?
at the time, like, so I was a security guard at Mineral Area Hospital, and um, like I was working with another guy, and we decided we were going to come up with a little production company, and it was the original incarnation of it was called Underworld Productions. So what happened there is we did that show, and then I kind of went off on my own, and I changed it up, and then I added an X, so it was Underworld X Productions at that time, and
Gotcha.
so basically, we I'm trying to remember the timeline because it was like a big blur. There was the old bowling alley in Park Hills.
Yeah.
It had a big sign on it. These people were renting it out, and they had a nightclub in there. It was called Club Thump. It was
Get your
like,
thump on.
yeah, they would rent me the stage they had for $50 at the time. You know, like couldn't beat that.
Nah.
And so I didn't have a PA yet at that time, and we had our buddies from the band Torrance in Washington, Missouri. They would come down from Washington with their PA, and they would run the shows. And you know, we did 6 or 8 shows at Club Thump, and some of them were pretty good, some of them not.
It's
You know,
all part of the learning process.
yeah, yeah.
So Club Thump, what was that, about 2003 that you would say you were doing that?
Yeah, that was late 2003, I would say, early 04.
I want to say I remember
Um,
some of that because like I want to say like that was like around the cruising days.
yeah,
I remember the strip,
Yeah.
cruising the strip in Park Hills.
So
Oh, yeah.
one disaster we had there is, I mean, we had like 8 bands booked on a show. It was like a metal fest or whatever the gimmick was at the time, and our buddies with the PA, they were late, like extremely late. And I
Mm.
can't remember what the issue was, but it was a good reason. And the show went to like 2 or 3 in the morning. It was a
Oh,
nightmare.
my. Wow.
Yeah, it was just like one of those. Just when they finally showed up with the PA, I was kind of like, I was hoping some of the bands would be like, "Oh, it's too late. I don't want to play." I was
Right.
hoping they would just go home, but they were like, "No, we want to play, dude." So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, with the wee hours of the morning, I'm sure we were breaking some kind of law. I don't know.
Yeah, probably, but at those times, man, it seems like you kind of got away with a little bit more
Yeah,
versus, years down the line, for
yeah,
sure.
I don't know. Park Hills police
Yeah,
were a little notorious back then, maybe even more so than now. I thought maybe with like stuff like that.
yeah. Yeah, I know as far as like the local music scene's concerned, too, Zach, is anybody who's, listened to our show to date, you've heard us reference, and we've had Doug Wicker on the show previously, the Bang the Drum, the life and death of a local music scene
yeah,
documentary. And they kind of talk early in those discussions about the shows at the bowling alley, and that's the bowling alley that they reference in there as well. But, those shows started to progress on to other venues in the Farmington area where people really anywhere that would have a show, and Zach, you could back me up on this, people would have shows in Farmington too. And I know like a lot of what Zach did specifically, at least whenever I got started in the scene in about 2005, was at the Rock House at that time, and then on to places like Barbarino's, Long Hall we've mentioned too. Was kind of something that was in and out. Long Hall got kind of weird. Rosner's, another very popular spot too, that I know that several shows were held at. Even the VFW halls and Legion halls and things like that in the area
yeah,
too had shows. Potosi even had shows from time to time. I know we played some shows down there. Zach, you may even ran the sound at a show or two that we
yeah.
played down there.
Yeah, so
Yes,
we would do sound for the Battle for Potosi. It was
that's
for
right.
the American
We
Cancer
played that.
Society fundraiser. We
Yeah.
did sound. I think I can't remember 2 or 3 years for that. So there was also the J.C. Park in Fredericktown. Like the whole city council and the mayor and all that of Fredericktown. They were really cool back then, and they allowed like more than Farmington actually. So we did shows in J.C. Park right there, like right in downtown Fredericktown, and those turned out awesome. There at the end, like Engler Park, we were doing shows there. Like the city of Farmington would actually like kind of, they'd be like, well, we don't really want to do Long Haul, but do Engler Park all you want. And like, I think it was $5 to reserve a pavilion or something. It was silly.
Yeah.
But we did some really good shows at Engler. Um, I did a few at Columbia Park and Park Hills. We did one in Elvins Park. Um, There was 8 Up Inc. over there in Park Hills. We did shows at all the time.
Yeah.
The Farmington VFW Hall we did shows at on occasion. Farmington AmVets. One time, like, I don't know how I did it, but I talked the owner of the Dugout to allow us to do a Halloween show, and we had like
Yeah.
8 metal bands. It was
Yeah.
insane. Like, I would always hit her up and be like, hey, can I book a show? And she'd be like, well, yeah, okay, cool. And then you'd
Yeah.
never hear from her again. So finally, one time,
Right.
like, I went in, I can't remember who was with me. Somebody in a local band, like, that was, a smooth talker, better than me. we both went in there and, like, we had a plan and, like, so we finally talked. I can't remember her name, Sue, I think. We talked her into letting us do a show, and man, it was insane. It was awesome.
I know that there is, outside of some of the places that you mentioned, I know that, like, even down in Ironton, there's a few times that they tried to throw shows down there. At the PK Bowl that they had, Pilot Knob Bowl down there was a few shows down there, trying to kind of replicate some of that same spirit that was going on in the more happening spots, like, Farmington and things of that ilk. But uh, I know at some point, Zach, for you at least, in what you were doing, things kind of changed from Underworld X, and you went into ZACH WEISS Promotions. And I know the time that which I got to know you a little bit better and more personally was some shows that we did together at Barbarino's specifically, and it was kind of I guess the initial reincarnation of Barbarino's when Bob was renting it out to a family that was I guess managed it, if you will, at the time, and you came in. That relationship was that you. I think we already basically had like bands and talent sorted out, but I just needed you to run sound.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you ran sound for me on a few shows. I don't. Were you active at that time still yet, or were you
Yeah.
kind of in a lull?
Like, a lot of it really is a blur.
Mm-hmm.
I was actively booking shows. I think so Bob he had been running it for a while, and then something happened and the city didn't want to do shows anymore. So everybody had to cancel a whole bunch of shows.
Yeah.
And then it kind of sat dormant for a while, if I remember correctly. And then
Yeah.
the newer guy came in and kind of revitalized the business. I did a
Joe
few
was his
shows
name.
with him. Did that. I wrestled a bear once show. I did
Mm.
Rusted Skin, a few other just local metal shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the newer guy, he kind of revitalized it. There were some newer guys doing shows there.
Right.
I think I can't even remember what promotional companies they were going by at the
Yeah.
time. But
I know that you had done some shows there. I did some shows there. Cato, old friend of the show, Cato
oh yeah,
Gatsby, rest in peace. He did some shows himself there across the Atlantic. Was pretty active at that time. You know, the thing about the Mineral area music scene, with all the adversity that we faced, with all these venues shutting down from time to time again, it's like we kept finding places to make these things happen, even if it involved us going back to a place that was previously a no and revitalizing that place. Like, I know a huge, like, knife to the artery in this area was whenever the Rock House got shot down,
Yeah, big
and a
time.
lot of stuff like John Mancuso took that over, and a
yeah,
lot of the pay the play type shit started happening, and a lot of these bands around here couldn't really, get with that mo. And Mancuso was trying to bring in like big touring acts with like large multi-$1,000 guarantees in some cases, and he wasn't getting the local turnout too. So that was kind of bad, like business dealings and things like that. So the Rock House kind of fell flat on his face. I know before that, at least my last dealings was with the Robinson family, and they were always very cool. Kevin Robinson was always cool to me,
yeah. He
and
was straight up.
his
He
kids.
was, yeah,
Yeah, and I know you
very
did a
good
lot of
guy to
work with
deal with.
Kevin. Yeah, you
Yeah,
booked a lot of shows there.
yeah. So the actual owners of the Rock House, they at from what I recall, I had a very difficult time dealing with him from time to time. But Kevin came in, did a great job for a long time.
Yeah.
And then when Mancuso came in, I think he renamed it Center Stage.
Yeah,
that's right.
He was there for a little bit, and then I think there was some issues with like the sprinkler system inside,
Right.
and I believe they got kind of shut down for a while, and like he
Yeah.
never opened back up. So I think a lot of that was city issues,
Right.
Farmington city issues, like the building
That
not being
was
up to code and whatnot.
yeah. That
Um,
was definitely a part of it. I can speak from a unique experience because I actually worked for Mancuso briefly. A little bit. There was a lot of drama, quite
yeah,
frankly, going
yeah,
on there, and just outside of the city issues. I think the city was just kind of trying to come and nitpick at him
right.
because of all of the drama that was going on, city gossip, this, that, the other thing. So I just remember very distinctly there was an occasion that supposedly the bathrooms weren't working at one point, and so the city came in and said, "Well, you can't run shows if you don't have a public restroom." So he came up with this loophole where I guess that we could do shows out of the storefront, technically, and the city couldn't shut us down. So whatever shows he had for the next couple weekends, that was the plan. Well, when you showed up to go play, and this is like in the dead of like dog days of summer, like August, I want to say, we actually had to play outside and not inside. And so like bands weren't receiving that very well, and kind of like the issues of playing outside, um, just audibly as a musician and things like that. So that didn't go over very well. I think some people didn't get the guarantees that they thought they were getting. That was another factor in all that. And then I think some of Mancuso kind of like lived there too. So some of his interpersonal family and drama and stuff like that kind of spilled out in for everybody to witness at times,
yeah.
and that wasn't good either. So I think the city, and it was in a unique spot too. And this is kind of the elephant in the room that we've not even touched on yet, and that's the fact that you got to consider the location of Center Stage in Farmington, the old Rock House, and that is the fact that it's nestled between like 4 or 5 churches, right next, very close to the courthouse. Now an annexed building, basically next door to it. There's funeral homes. There's residential tucked up right next to it. Schools. So there's a lot of like tightly congested people in that area with a lot of old blood in the city
Right.
and political influence too. And we could throw in the religious influence as well, which I could go on a whole episode about that thing in particular.
Well, and realistically, you have 214 liquor right outside.
That's
And,
right.
between bands, where do they
That's right.
go?
Yeah,
Okay, they
Yeah.
go right over across the street to the liquor store. They
Right.
buy a whatever, and then
Yeah.
they're out in the parking lot,
That's right.
and they slam it. It
That's
goes
right.
into the parking lot, into the church parking lot,
Right.
and wherever. There's
Right.
cans, bottles everywhere after a show.
Right.
Sunday morning after a big Saturday night show, the church people show up. They're pissed because there's liquor
Right.
bottles everywhere.
Right.
They were always, so I ran the Rock House for about 3 months, and they were always complaining at city council meetings, always
right.
trying to get the Rock
Yeah.
House shut down. And it was specifically that First Baptist Church behind there, and
Yes.
they have a grievance, I get it. You don't want to have your congregation show up on a Sunday morning and with, bottles everywhere, but,
Sure.
you know, um, the ownership of the Rock House could have taken measures to clean it up and preserve a little bit of peace with the city and everybody, but they were
Right.
just kind of they weren't having that at the time. It was a pissing contest, and
Yeah.
it was just that venue, the building, like it was just doomed from the get go. It would come in and
Yeah.
out like it was just intermittent. It had so much potential for a venue,
Sure.
really, but
Yeah, and it didn't have enough consistency either. I'd say like the most consistency I feel like was the time that Kevin was there. It seemed like he was kind of running things the longest to me. But maybe I have a warped perception on who was there the longest too.
well, and
I I feel like Mancuso was only there for like 6 or 8 months,
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe 10 at most.
yeah, Mancuso, he was not there for a long time. I think you're probably right. I think Kevin was there early on when the place first had opened, and then he was there later on in like the
Yeah, 2
existence
different
of the place.
stints. Yeah.
So I had done a couple of shows there with Kevin and always had a really good experience with him. So there was no issues there
Yeah.
with him. So I think a lot of it was just like the fact that there's only a dozen bands and that really doesn't sustain a venue in a small town. Like,
That's fair.
you know,
Yeah.
and then, as we discussed, all the city issues like the religion and
Right.
law enforcement and that,
Right.
I don't have that issue anymore. But at one time, that was a very real thing.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
you couldn't book a show without wondering, hey, are the cops going to shut me down and then I lose
Exactly
a
right.
shitload of money?
Right.
And so,
Right.
like, I got to the point where, and I had an inside track in law enforcement because my father-in-law worked for the sheriff's department. So I got to the point where I would just tell them, hey, we're going to book a show this date, and then we would hire police to be our security. That way, they felt like they were important and in control and whatnot. So we were we were literally, just you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. So.
Oh no, I can speak from my perspective too. So, kind of my early running of shows or whatever. Actually, it was Josh and I. We were kind of in lulls of playing music, but we were still friends with everybody in the music scene and wanted to be involved. So we booked shows. Josh started working at Nature's Cup, so that provided us an in for doing stuff there specifically. And then I just kind of throughout the years, some of the connections and relationships that I built at Nature's Cup went on to book shows at like Barbarino's, for example, and so on. So, and whenever Barbarino's was kind of, I will say, kind of my big boy booking, if you will, where I did a lot of most of everything myself, with the exception of your help, Zach, to run sound on quite a few occasions. But I even had my own PA at one point and ran my own sound a few times too. But I can speak from my perspective in dealing with all that as well. And I didn't have any ends like you, but I did try something similar. I actually went down to downtown Farmington City Police Department because they're the ones who kept showing up and shutting us down, claiming that we were being too loud, even though we were within the city noise ordinance, within the city limits. I think it was 10 o'clock at the time. And they'd routinely come in and shut us down like 8:50, 9:20, like well before the city ordinance time. And I got to the point like, they really have no other reason they're shutting us down because everything was above board. I mean, there might have been like one fight and out of 20 plus shows maybe that I did there. And so I mean, I would prefer that there was zero, but one, you're not going to win them all, right? And that wasn't the reason the cops got called either. The cops got called because it was too loud. So I eventually I was like, you know what? I need to go down to the police department, introduce myself, tell them who I am, like what our intentions are, and we're running shows like this, and we have security at the door, and this and that. And they're welcome to come by. I'll be happy to buy the officers a slice of pizza or whatever, to kind of schmooze things over. I went down to City Hall, I shit you not, and requested to speak with the police chief or a supervising officer. And they looked at me like I had 4 fucking heads, dude. They were totally astonished by the fact that I guess that I had the gall to come in there and talk to anybody, as it were, anyway. And they damn near laughed me out of the building to begin with. So I don't really know, and I'm not going to get into the weeds further with that, but that's just the initial me going in there and wanting to talk to somebody. So right then and there, that tells you everything you needed to know. There was already preconceived notions. They didn't have any intent to work with anybody. And maybe it was established because of all those bad experiences and bad actors that we talked about before. But I can just speak from my perspective. That's kind of what I dealt with whenever I was booking shows. And that really took the steam out of a lot of people in the local area because they were successful. They were an avenue for kids to get out and do something more positive with their lives other than, a bunch of tomfoolery, and creating property damage and shit like
Yeah.
that, So.
Well, and the Farmington scene, like at one time, it was really something like special to be a part
Absolutely.
of. It was remarkable. Like, and like I mentioned Fredericktown a minute ago, Fredericktown really had a nice little thing going with like all these just awesome bands. We're talking like Crypt 33, like they were like just awesome.
Yeah.
And Tim, if you hear this, I miss you guys. But like St. Genevieve had bands. There were a few like Potosi, Von Terre bands. It was just like a thriving scene. And I can't forget to bring up Joey O'Farrell. He was bringing in like some right
heavy
now
hitters.
shows that none of us would be able to afford because like all the Fallout Boy shows and like the Under Oath he booked like
Spitalfield, yeah.
We really had like just something special going on there, and I think we kind of knew it at the time, but at the same time we kind of just like, oh yeah, this is just Farmington, this is how it's supposed
this is how it'll be.
Yeah.
Right.
But now that we don't have that, it's kind of like, ooh, man, it really gives me a perspective on like my journey getting back into booking shows. It's like, okay, you have to slow down, take it, just one day at a time and enjoy everything.
Right.
And one thing I have learned is even your shows that don't go so well, that is an invaluable tool. I have made like amazing friends as a result of shows that flopped, and they like really, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. They don't happen all the time, but they do happen.
Sure.
And that's kind of like people see your true character and how you deal with adversity.
Conduct yourself.
Like, oh, okay. And friendships are made out of those situations. And
I agree.
Like every now and then something like that happens and it opens a doorway and creates all these contacts that, you didn't know were important at the time, but later on down the road, it's like you're thankful that show happened so many years ago, regardless of the outcome. So.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the subject of connections and contacts and making them and how you conduct yourself and that sort of thing, I mean, obviously the whole reason that I reached out to you back in the day to work together was that I saw how you conducted yourself with professionalism and you just like always handled your shit and you were a real dude and just a pleasure to work with and work for if we were a band playing for you on one of your shows. Very, timely with communication, any questions, I can ask some stupid fucking questions, and you never made me feel like I ever asked a stupid question too. So I can't. I think you are definitely don't get the recognition that you deserve, specifically for some of the successes in this area and show going and those experiences for kids and creating memories. So kudos to you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Trust me, I know how it is to have questions. And, I learned the hard way just by doing it and making every mistake possible. And, it's like if I can answer a question, I will, and you mentioned like timely communication. My thing is one of my little sayings is no response is a response.
Right.
And, you can learn a lot by not getting a response from somebody. It's like, oh, okay. There's a venue that I work with that I haven't actually done a show with them yet because we just can't come together on a date yet. But so every time I will send them an email, I will get a response, a very pleasant response, very professional response.
Right.
And, somebody that has been doing this for a long time, you come to that, you appreciate that more than you could ever explain. It's like,
right.
Okay, it's like, okay, they didn't give me the date because it's already filled. But this courteous professional response that I just received from them, this is a venue that I want to work with,
Right.
and it takes 15 seconds to type a couple sentences, like,
Sure.
hey, sorry, no, blah, 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 whatever,
Right.
Right.
and maybe next time,
Right.
instead, I get ignored a lot. So,
I know the feeling.
yeah. Like when
Yeah.
it comes to emails and stuff,
Yeah.
no response is a response. That's just my philosophy.
Right.
And
Sure.
then I just kind of move on.
You're not wrong.
Well, and
I'd
when
say
I'm
there's
trying to
exceptions sometimes.
really pursue a venue, I will follow up at the 7-day mark just to bug the piss out of them. But
Right.
that works
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. There's so, kind of the MO of the show, when Josh and I set out to do this again. So we actually first did the podcast in 2010.
Right. Yep.
And we just kind of like grazed the surface of what we wanted to do. And again, that was kind of in motivation, much like us promoting shows. It's because we didn't have anything creatively going. So we're going to do this podcast, and that way we can talk about things creatively that are going on that we enjoy. So it was like when Bauhaus Coffee first opened and they started to do shows there. So the timing of everything was kind of great because we could start promoting shows. Again, not necessarily shows per se that we booked, but our friends were on, or our friends were booking. We could talk about that. We could bring local bands on, talk to them. We would talk to people from St. Louis bands, Columbia bands still. We didn't. I mean, again, we didn't get into the weeds like we do now, and technologies went a far away. But some of that too is talking to businesses now, which we didn't get the opportunity to do before, and that's small businesses that are unique and I feel like have a good product and they're like actually in it for the customer. Like, a business, you need to make money at the end of the day, right? To keep the wheels spinning, the lights turned on, and there's money that needs to transact for people to live that work at those businesses. But I don't feel like we spotlight anybody that's like out there for like corporate greed or anything like that. And and I making a long point here, but where you were talking about earlier with like the non-responses and stuff, I've had some very similar experiences, and there's a very unique business model for a record store that I'd really like to have on our show, but unfortunately we can't get them to respond in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
So, things are probably just not going to happen. And some of that was mixed in with non-response or whatever. But I've also had it happen where somebody's messaging me and I'm in the middle of 10 different things. And I can speak for myself, like, and I'm not saying this for anybody to feel sorry for me, but like, I got too much shit going on. I got 3 kids. I manage multiple businesses. I've got this show going on. We're trying to book people. I'm also trying to help other people out who have questions. Like a lot of people reach out to me, even old guests from the show, or somebody that's like wanting to push a single on an episode or whatever the case is. And now I got a T-ball team too, and all that fun stuff that life throws at you. And that, and trying to keep up with your own house and the chores and the man chores or what have you. It gets kind of crazy. So I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but yeah, a no response is often not a response.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
the thing is, one more little point is you never know who is on the other end of that email
That's true.
that you're ignoring.
It's true.
Very true.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what opportunities you're passing by not, you might not be interested in this Tuesday show they're pushing at you.
Right.
But who's to say that, that fancy Saturday show they send you 2 months from now might not be down your alley. Like I said, you never know what's coming. You never know who that is on the other end.
No, I agree.
And even if you're not interested,
Yeah.
I make it a point. Hey, thank you very much. No, blah, blah, blah. Here's this venue here you might try. Just like a little bit of common courtesy. A little bit of
Professional
transfer
courtesy.
over to somebody else, and it goes a long way.
Absolutely.
No, I agree. And another subject matter I wanted to hit on with you too, Zach, while we're talking local music scenes and things like that. I hear this excuse about social media being a cause for, local music scenes to dry up and things like that. But I actually saw it as a vehicle to bud them. So, for example, back to the Farmington music scene, STL Punk was a huge driver in that.
Oh,
I know.
Absolutely.
St. Louis music scene. You could go back even further with like what was it, GTP days back, the
GTP.
message board. Yeah.
I still remember
So
my username. Yep.
what was it?
Yep. Underworld Empire. That was my GTP username. It's like,
Nice.
woo.
There you go. Very good. But yeah, I mean, and then I think it kind of changed into MySpace a little bit there for a little while, and Facebook ruled the world for a long time. But they were just really marketing vehicles for people to get the information out about their shows. Don't get me wrong. As a concert goer, you do see the effects of social media in social settings, but I don't think that they stop people necessarily from going to shows. Is it is there more information about other live events that might attract people to things elsewhere? Yes, but at the end of the day, I think we all crave some type of social interaction, human interaction. I know a lot of my relationships are built upon, through the music scene, so that's what I always go back to. But I'm a fan of the arts in general. I like sports, sporting events. What are your thoughts with that theory, Zach? I don't find it to be valid personally.
Well, to be 100% honest with you, I think social media is great. Like,
Yeah,
as far as like from a promoter's perspective, um, it's not the end all be all. There are people that are not on social media.
right,
I don't know any personally, but they exist. Um, like I would pay $100 to put a banner ad on STL Punk for 30 days. So that was like a very basic form of social media back then, and
right,
that was like a light bulb that all the flies kind of like gravitated towards. One,
right,
and every now and then you'd see your profile like featured there was
right.
like the little square on the
That's
left.
right.
Like if you'd see your profile featured, it would be like, ooh, look at me,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
it was like, it was a really cool thing. And um, so it's like, do I think social media really has an effect on like decline in show attendance? I don't think so. Um, what I think has a decline, an effect is just saturation. Like
Sure.
the same band
Oversaturation.
playing 500 times in the same month, the same
Yeah,
venue, and like
definitely.
nobody's going to come to that.
Right.
Like
Right.
they just saw you last Tuesday.
Right.
Why do they? They're not excited. They don't give a shit.
Right.
They don't want to see you. It's like,
Right. Right.
give it a month or two, and then they'll be excited about you again.
Right.
But
No, I agree for sure. I think some people kind of got caught in the traps and the musings of and the convenience. Quite frankly, just playing down here too. I
yeah,
mean, I know that there was many occasions that we in the bands that I was in over time were asked to play shows down here because a band fell off or whatever, and there was definitely a few of those that we jumped on, but we did start to learn that. I mean, we were young kids. We were
Right.
just hungry to play in front of
Anywhere you could
people and
play.
people to hear our music and people to like us.
Right.
When I think I started in the scene, I was either 18 or 19. I know there's people that started earlier than me. I kind of lived a somewhat sheltered life up until I was like 17 or so. But but yeah, I just think a lot of that really has to do with some of real just to put a button on more of the local scene here in our experiences. I think a lot of it had to do with an amalgamation of the things that we talked about prior to that mismanagement of venues, um, you know, outside influences like city administrations, religious influences, that sort of stuff, more so than the social media aspect of things. And again, Nature's Cup, another place that had a good thing going. I don't remember it ever getting shut down for sound. Josh, do you?
No,
Because they were kind of on an island, really, over
yeah,
there.
I think maybe they did an outside show once, and then they decided if they do any more outside shows, they had to do them somewhere else. But I think as far as the inside, I don't think it ever got shut down. That's as far as I can remember.
Right. Yeah, I think that was kind of the case. I do recall that being the case. I think they had like a battle of the bands out all day thing that they ended up getting some complaints over, but that was like really the only complaint that I ever recall us ever dealing with over
Yeah.
there. But again, it kind of went into, it was kind of a boutique coffee shop, really was its business model. And at the end of the day, they needed to sell coffee. And they weren't selling a lot of coffee at those shows. Yes, they were taking admission, but it got kind of loose. If you knew somebody, that sort of thing too. you got to get your door charges. You know, you got to be able to pay the bands, and then you start stiffing bands, and just again, it's just kind of that perfect storm of bad stuff happening that everybody starts on the up and up with the best intentions. I feel like, but you start making an exception for this one, and then that one, and kind of the snowball effect, if you will, turns into an avalanche.
Oh yeah, yeah, and so there was another venue that we haven't talked about yet that was incredible. It was. Do you remember it? I'm gonna see if you can think of it
Oh,
before I bring it up.
well,
In the factory,
oh yes,
the vault.
the
Oh,
vault.
the ball.
Yep,
Yeah,
Tim
yeah.
Smith, old buddy.
Tim Smith, like I mentioned him earlier, he was in Crypt 33.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
love
like,
Tim.
it was a big city venue down in Farmington. And I mean, it was like they had things that you would see like at the Crack Fox, just awesome shit. And
Yeah.
it was just really too good for Farmington, honestly. It should have been
Yeah,
in St. Louis or Denver or KC or, like
it would have done
it
well.
was,
Yeah,
it was incredible.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and Tim had it together too. I mean,
yeah,
he's got all the credentials in the world. Fantastic graphic designer on top of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing cook, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Timmy, we need your cooking.
I see his Instagram posts all the time, and I'm like, man,
Yeah, I know. Food porn.
yeah, yeah,
Big
yeah. He's
time.
really into the cramps too. So, and like,
Yeah,
I
cramps
watch
are
a
good.
lot of his Instagram stories or whatever they're called, and he
Yeah.
plays a lot of like eclectic rockabilly '60s type stuff, and that's how I
Yeah.
discover a lot of bands is through Tim. So, uh,
Yeah, Tim's a good guy. He put on a show for the last band I was in, Meyer Giants. Did a basement show for us, just to have something in Fredericktown. Huge turnout. He did it like in his. It was, I think it was in the basement of his house. His dad did sound. He still had his sound equipment and stuff. And man, it was one of the funnest shows I ever played. It was just a little basement show and packed it out. Everybody was just like kind of hanging out, having a good time. And just him as a guy who DIY till you die.
Yeah.
I just love that spirit.
And he has really like inspired me through the years too.
Absolutely.
Like he is
Yeah.
like straight up DIY, and like I mean he was doing like high level shows in the parking lot of Unique Inc. in Fredericktown. Like he did
Right.
like a free P-Lander Z show one time, and like
Yeah.
like he was always bringing in like national touring acts and doing free shows.
Yeah.
So
I think he
was
booked
awesome.
White Reaper at one point too. Like they came down to like Farmington, Missouri, of all places. I think White Reaper came down and played, and
Awesome.
I mean they're pretty popular now for like kind of like stoner and doom heads and people kind of in that scene and like that type of genre or whatever. But yeah, Tim's such a it's awesome just person. Period.
Oh yeah.
Mine, yeah, too. Don't want to pass that up. So Zach, back to you and your accomplishments specifically. I know we kind of talked about the fact that the Underworld X stuff shifted into ZACH WEISS Productions. I know that you had a lot of credible shows and packages and bookings. You talked about the I Wrestled a Bear Once show. Duck Duck Goose was supposed to be on that bill too. I think they had vehicle issues.
Yeah.
That was a show that we played for you there as well. I remember that show. It was a pretty good time, and that was held at Barbarino's. And
Yep.
I know that you had the Battle for Fear Before competition over at Long Haul, and that's where we got kind of kicked in the pants, and Long Haul didn't want to do things anymore. So, as I remember, I guess that was kind of, at least in my experience in the band that I was in, that was pretty much the end of playing in Farmington for the most part.
It seems
what about
like
you?
things kind of went south after that.
Yeah.
So like we had a show booked there with like there was Dr. Acula and I don't know, somebody else on the tour package, and I think one of the bands showed up, and there was some kind of issue with like a bottle out back or something, and then like Farmington, it was just a bad night altogether, and Farmington decided, hey, I think we're kind of done.
Yeah.
And so I had contacted them about that Fear Before show, which was a good show. It was an awesome show. It would have been packed.
Yeah.
And they essentially told me no more shows. So
Yeah.
then, after we had worked our butt off to land that in Farmington, I had the misfortune of contacting the agent saying, "Hey, here's what's up." So, and they were hooking us up anyway because it was the last date on the tour, and I think it fell on a Sunday if I can remember right, and they were headed somewhere from somewhere, how it always ends,
Right.
So it's
Sure.
like, and there was no other venue to move it to, and that kind of left a sour taste in that agent's mouth. I don't even remember who it was, whatever, but
Yeah.
and then I was kind of like, I'm done with Farmington.
Yeah.
So for the next few years, we would book shows over at the AMVETS for a while, typical, one trick pony kind of shows, metal shows,
Right.
and
Right.
but that was kind of it for a while,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember a little bit of that activity at the AM events. We played one show there. Meyer Giants did. But yeah, I think it was like 2016, 2017 maybe, if I remember timeline right. Yeah. And so how long have you been in Iowa now? You've been there for a
Well,
few years, right?
so little over 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I had made a deal with my wife. It's like she wanted to move up here to Iowa. And it's like, the lead belt, all those homes that were owned by the mines, they were built with mine chat. So our house had some foundation issues. And I'm like, we will never sell this house ever. So
Yeah.
I made a deal with my wife. It's like, okay, you sell the house, we'll move to Iowa. Well, like 2 weeks later, she sold the house. So
Oh, wow.
I wasn't expecting it really, to be honest with you. I'm like, no, this is
Yeah.
never going to happen.
Right.
And so we move up here, uh, doing our thing, and incredible venues up here,
Yeah.
Um,
Why Iowa, might I ask
well,
specifically?
so my brother works for Iowa Total Care. And so it's basically like the Iowa version of Centene.
I gotcha.
And so my wife works for Centene, and so she got
So does
some
mine.
kind of promotion, and now she works remote.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what she does. She's been promoted 50 times. We're like Ozzy and Sharon. She's like all businessy and smart, and I'm like a hillbilly idiot. But
Sounds like me
I
and
was
my
gonna say
wife.
it's very similar to my situation.
I'm just like the biggest loser, and here she is, like making all the big bucks, and like here
Yeah.
I am, just like like Jack Black in Orange County,
Hell yeah.
like, hey, can I score some of your piss? But anyway, so it's like I was kind of down, like I wasn't doing well here, and
Yeah.
my wife's like, maybe you should do a show.
Right.
And like I had been bugging Cancer Slug for years about doing a show. And so
Great name too.
finally Cancer Slug decides, okay, we're going to go on a tour. And I'm like, okay, well, I can do that. So here I am. I don't even have a job. And like I'm selling plasma to pay for show expenses. And like I do this Cancer Slug show. We pull it off old school, like punk rock style. I didn't, no pre-sale tickets or none of this. We straight up old school. Like I wanted to do one show just to get it out of my system and be done with it. And that didn't quite work. So,
Yeah.
so that one show turned into a bunch. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I just kind of Facebook friend watch, if you will. It seemed like kind of at first it wasn't gonna be an all the time thing, and then now you're just full bore right back at it.
Yeah, like,
Because you like sold like a lot of your sound equipment and stuff too before you took
oh,
off, didn't you?
well, yeah, I sold the entire PA. I gave my lights away, which I'm kicking myself for
Oh
that.
wow,
Like,
should have given them to me.
yeah, I had a really nice, my PA was like a really nice little QSC setup. And I actually listed it for sale on Craigslist, and some religious cult from Chicago bought it. So at least there's the satisfaction knowing that, like, they're brainwashing their followers, which I found good, you know.
That's fucking great, dude.
But
That's
yeah, like,
fantastic.
I can't verify that they were a religious cult, but they were very cult-like in their behavior.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, a lot of organized religion is a cult, to be honest.
hey, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
No questions asked. So, whenever you threw that first show, did you already have the whole cranial nerve moniker in mind for your next
Well,
promotion
so
move?
so cranial nerve, like, in the back of your skull, like in your brain, you have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. And, they're responsible for like vision and smell and hearing. And like, I had been in the medical field years ago and I had memorized those at one point. I couldn't tell you what they are now, but I had them all memorized and it was cool and whatnot and like
Sure.
blah, blah, whatever. And I was always fascinated with like the central nervous system and the cranial nerves and all this. And so around like 2014, I came up with that concept. It was like originally Cranial Nerve Productions. And, so like I kind of brought it back, um, about a year and a half ago. Like I decided to kind of resurrect the concept and I went with Cranial Nerve Records at the time. And so that's what I have been doing is putting out a lot of, material compilations mainly. Um, like I was really inspired by some horror punk bands for about the past 5 or 6 years. So like I had been thinking about that in my mind. I want to
Yeah.
release music. And, I had worked with multiple record labels in the past and saw how they kind of did it and like, oh, I like that. I don't like this, blah,
Yeah.
blah, whatever,
Yeah.
kind of made it my own.
Right.
And then there's like, it kind of snowballed out of control. That just putting out a couple compilation CDs turned into booking shows and then helping bands book tours and then booking for a venue and this and that. It just turned into like overnight. It was just a lot.
Yeah.
And then I was constantly getting like emails from bands, hey, we want to come play your record store. It's like, well, okay, I don't have a record store. I'm sorry. So,
Yeah.
so I kind of decided, I made an executive decision. It's like, we're going to drop the word records altogether.
Yeah. I
Just
hear you.
to cut the confusion and, like labels, there's some negative things that come, like some negative thoughts that go along with the term record label and record company. And,
Sure.
I don't need any of that. So it's like the word
Right.
records can just peace. See you later. So,
Yeah.
but honestly, it was just to get rid of some confusion that had
Sure.
existed.
Well, I know that at least again from my perspective, I think you've already said it. The fact that kind of whenever you came back at it with this cranial nerve project, you had so much more that you were doing even in the past, which you were already doing a lot, and that is kind of the compilation aspect of things. And you were so kind to send us some of that and our little care package that you sent us as well,
Oh yeah,
which
I
I
forgot
really,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, really like to see it, man. I like to see you kind of stretching yourself out there too,
Hell
and
yeah, that's awesome.
you probably provided an opportunity for people that they wouldn't have had otherwise, and gave them kind of exposure that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And that's just again goes all the way back to your motivations, the spirit in which you do things. It's always like you're kind of championing the little guy and hats off to you for that, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, like, and realistically, it's kind of, it's, if people who've known me for more than just a few years, they knew that I was like a garden plant fanatic, like, hippie nature kind of, like get excited about my compost pile kind of guy, and
Yeah.
so everything in nature and like in the garden kind of works together, and it's just nobody asks anybody for anything. Everybody just knows, and there's a role everybody plays,
Right.
and I kind of feel like, if you can help somebody else along the way and push them and kind of, set them up and watch them become better than you'll be, like that,
Yeah.
that's good enough for me, really. It's like,
Yeah. I
um,
totally.
and I do know from like my past experiences, like I would pick up like a Cleopatra Records compilation, and like to this day, I still listen to some bands that, I discovered on a comp from the mid '90s, so,
Yeah.
um, and physical media is kind of like, you know, limited to vinyls and cassettes these days, really.
Right.
I'm still a firm believer in the CD. Like,
Well, it's a great audio quality.
well, and yeah, and like I read somewhere, like almost 6 out of 10 cars still have a CD player in them today. So that's 60%. Those are pretty good odds that,
Yeah.
you give somebody a CD, they'll pop it in the CD player.
Right.
So,
More CD
but,
players than tape players, and definitely more than vinyl players in a car.
oh yeah, and,
Right.
there's a lot of bands I talk to. Um, they say cassettes like really help them eat when they're on the road. So
Yeah.
that it's they're back.
Yeah.
So and there's no doubt about it. They've been back for a while. So,
Yeah.
and I like to see that because, that opens that up for me too in the future. If I ever want to do a cassette release, I know the demand for it is there. But
Yeah. Overhead's less, and
yeah,
the profit margins are bigger with cassettes. And again, it gives that opportunity, like you mentioned, somebody have a physical. I mean, there's no better advertisement really than physical media in a lot of cases. That is, especially like let's say I have friends over, family or whatever, and they want to go check out my record stash and stuff like that. I start thumbing through cassettes or records or whatever, and it's almost like the childhood nostalgia experiences start to rush back to mind. Of I know at least for me, like I even remember a time before Walmart even really had the single displays out. Where they had like cassette singles still that they were
yeah,
selling and things like that.
yeah.
So and I always like enjoyed like going to comic book shops or going and buying collectors cards and things like that. You talked about Magic, Zach. That's another
Yeah.
thing. It helps you tap into some of those fond childhood memories and things like that too. And really, it's just a conversation piece, if nothing else. I mean, outside the fact it's music, you like it, you enjoy it, you're supporting bands that you like. But there's so many facets to the benefits of it as well.
Well, and like TV Guide didn't know what they were doing at the time, but uh, they influenced me a lot by the penny CD. You
Yeah. Oh yeah.
take the
Columbia
penny on
Records.
the card and mail it in. You get
Yeah.
15 CDs that you're never going to pay for. Like,
Yep.
so, uh, then, they would send you one every month or something like that and expect you to pay
Right.
for it. Well, they sent me Boys to Men, Cooley High Harmony.
Hey,
And
I'd have been
like,
down with that.
it was incredible.
Yeah.
And like, so, us being from the small town, we don't
Right.
deal with a lot of people other than just plain old white folks.
Yeah.
So I joined the military and I know this Boys to Men album forwards and backwards.
Yeah.
So that gave me some common ground, with people that I had not interacted with before. And,
Yeah.
it was just the awesomest feeling being able to connect with them because we both loved Boys to Men,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
that's just one story, like, talking about Alice in Chains. there
Oh
are other
boy,
dudes out there that are weird like me that are Alice in Chains fanatics, and when you find them, it's like a magical
it
occurrence.
is. Yeah,
It's like, like this dude knows all about it.
yeah,
So, but yeah, I'm sure IOBMG music like thousands of dollars from
right.
1990. So,
Hey, count the Lewis household a part of those people that owe them a lot of money.
yeah,
That's my dad started my fascination with all that stuff too at a young age. He started a lot of those subscriptions and stuff too, and never paid them back, and he would get duplicates and give them to me. So that's how a lot of my early beefy CD collections started. That is, and I remember a lot of those being like Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Van Halen, 311, those bands, man, and Boyz II Men, some Boyz II Men in there too, and Young MC,
Young
shit like
MC,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm always going to be a physical media head, even if it's just totally dinosaur at some point. I just can't not be, and I hope it's something I can pass along to my kids too, and they have an interest in it. I mean, they act like they have an interest in it right now, but they're also, ages 1 to 9. So we'll see if
oh
that
yeah.
pans out.
I have a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 14-year-old. Mine are a little bit older, so
Yeah. Well, one thing I've been loving, dude, lately is you've been sharing some of your kids' pics, and he's been doing it on his own, like picking out stuff. I know you've put up some pictures, Zach, of like I guess Goodwill dives or whatever the case is, but I know,
yeah.
yeah,
So up here we have a mall, and it's called the Merle Hay Mall, and there's Rats Underground Records. So it's like it's a used record store, and they've got T-shirts and patches, and just your textbook definition of a kick-ass punk rock underground store. And my son goes there probably 2 or 3 times a month, and like he'll buy cassettes one time, he'll buy vinyls the next time, and CDs the next time. He's just very much, he was born in the wrong decade.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
uh, we were running shows at the Hard Rock Cafe St. Louis, and my wife was 9 months pregnant with him, so that has something to do with it. Like the music
right,
rattled in his little brain.
yeah. Well, hey, man, you raised him right because I've seen there's some pretty good pics in there
Yeah, and
from time to time.
he's big into hair metal. Like
I'm
he's an
okay with that.
Ozzy fanatic.
Oh yeah. Attaboy.
Anything that has to do with Ozzy, he's all about it. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hey, man, few better than Ozzy, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
And one of my favorite hair metal bands is Rat. I still jam some Rat nowadays.
Yeah, I think he picked up a Rat cassette the other day, if I can remember right. Yeah.
Rat and roll, baby. Rat and roll.
Yeah. Like Warrant he listens to, and like Firehouse, just like your
Yeah.
typical 80s hair metal stuff,
Yeah.
Like that's my
Yeah.
boy,
Nothing wrong with that, man. Zach, are you I know like as far as running your shows and stuff nowadays, you're wearing so many hats. Are you still you got your own PA and stuff now, or do you have a venue that's supplying that for you?
I do not own a single piece of equipment at all.
That's a good thing, though.
That's my, like, so every time I invest in a PA, that's like my curse. Like,
I hear you.
Something always goes south every time I buy a PA, or a show gets canceled and then I quit, and so it's like, it's just an ongoing joke that I'm not going to buy a PA, at the moment. But
Yeah.
so I work with Hall Avenue Tavern. It's a little 74 capacity dive bar, and it has a pretty decent little PV system in it, comparable to any dive bar its size. Every city needs a Hall Avenue Tavern. It's just a little joint. And then I work with there's XBK I mentioned earlier. I don't think I mentioned them by name, but their owner is actually from Ironton.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then so a majority of my bigger shows, well, all of my bigger shows have been at Lefty's, which it's a 350 capacity venue. I've got a pretty good relationship with the owner. Like I can message him and within like a half an hour most of the time I have a response. So I mean
Cool.
that's pretty cool. That's a good thing I don't want to mess up. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and unusual too,
Right.
but
especially nowadays.
so like we've got a couple of things coming to like I've sent some shows to Park Hills Underground, some good ones that
I was gonna
you
say
can
I've noticed you're
you'll be able
still.
to tell that I had something to do with them,
Yeah,
but it's not actually me promoting them. It's just I sent them there. So
I gotcha.
and then uh, there's a little place in called Skate Bar in St. Joseph. We kind of share bands back and forth a little bit. Like I'll
Okay.
email them, hey, there's a band looking for a show, and they'll send me an email, hey, there's a band looking for a show. So we kind of swap and share.
Okay.
It kind of there's a couple other little venue options. It just kind of snowballed quickly. But mainly I'm booking at Hull Avenue Tavern and Lefties for the most part, which,
Yeah.
I'm content with that. That's okay. You don't need much else. So,
Do
uh,
you have any ambitions beyond what you're doing currently? Or are you good where you're at? Or
um, I have been assisting with some tours here lately.
okay.
I've made a few good contacts, just naturally it happens when you do shows.
Right. Rubbing elbows.
Right.
And I'm able, fortunately right now I'm able to help bands fill some dates, and that's a good thing. And I would like to expand upon that at some point in the future. Maybe put some cranial nerve bands on the road in that fashion. So,
Yeah.
uh, my big extensive record contract. It consists of, hey, yeah, you want to be on cranial nerve? Okay.
Let's
So
do it.
yeah, that's our contract. So, but no, like there is a little bit more to it, but realistically, like we kind of touched on earlier, it's just like a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
Like um, a lot of we put out physical media and help each other out, generate awareness, share resources, and that's what it's all about. It's not a
Yeah.
money thing or anything like that.
Right.
It's like planting a seed. You're not going to get a harvest from it immediately. It takes a while sometimes, and that's just kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah. Sometimes it bears fruit. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But nobody bats 1,000 either.
Right.
So you always got
No,
to
no.
keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah, and the thing is I saw like a meme or something the other day. It's like you can't compete with me because I want you to win too. And I mean that's very much the truth.
I like that.
Like I do want to see people be successful. Unless they're douchebags. But
Well, fair.
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 Yeah.
Very fair.
there's quite a few of those in the music industry.
Oh yeah.
It's in every industry, my friend.
Well,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
There's somebody around every corner looking at how they can make a buck off of a band,
Right.
and it's laughable.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Zach, I wanted to pick your brain on a few random questions not related to anything of this nature per se. More like dream scenario type stuff. Questions outside of booking tours and things like that too, so that our audience gets to know you and your personality a little bit better too. You down for this? You down for this game?
Sure, why not?
All right, let's do it. We'll make this one a little bit more relative to what you do. If you could book a dream package on a tour, 5 artists, your pick, who are you booking and why? No limitations.
Ooh. Well, like, can I bring them back from the dead?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Dream
all right.
band. Zombie lineup.
All right.
Zombie Lane Staley.
Let's see here. I don't know. Michael Jackson gets a lot of flack, but he would have to be involved somehow because, like Thriller was probably, I'm pretty sure it was the first album that I ever owned. I might have had like a Ronnie Millsap tape.
That's a callback.
Hillbilly
Yeah.
rednecks, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but no, like, so Thriller is the first album that I remember in its entirety from when I was a kid. I mean, so that Michael Jackson would be involved. Um, I would have Cancer Slug as the opening act just on principle. You know, the rudest, crudest, most vile band in America. So, Lane era Alice in Chains. So Lane would have to be the front man, or I wouldn't be interested.
Right.
Yeah. Zombie Lane, though.
Yeah,
He's got to be a zombie.
What am I at? 3?
Yep. You got
The
3.
Cramps would have to be involved.
Okay.
You know, and like, I don't know. I'm wanting to say Sisters of Mercy, but then there's Prince. Then there's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Either of them could help bridge some of those gaps and some of those musical differences, I feel
Yeah,
like.
absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, like if we were selling tickets, I would have to have Michael Jackson, Tupac, Notorious B.I.G. and Prince.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Boy, what a show.
Dude, man, yeah, it would sell out.
That'd be legendary.
Oh, no question. No question. Well, I mean, we can go down and get Tupac. He's like down in Jamaica or something like that, supposedly.
Yeah, he's
so
back.
Yeah,
we can get that started. And supposedly, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene knows where Michael Jackson's at for whatever reason. She knows, nobody else. So maybe we can get the inside track from her.
I do like Lady Gaga too. I lost my man card, I guess, but I like Lady Gaga.
I'm going to tell you, Ridge on the show. He's probably going to agree with you. And you remember old Ridge Jackson from back in the day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my band. And then I respect her talent.
She's definitely
I'm just not a fan of her music.
She's an artist.
Personally.
She's definitely an artist. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
She's a hell of an artist.
I've seen a lot of those videos of her back in the day, like when she was coming up and she was like in cover bands and shit. And like you see her doing like Zeppelin and shit, like playing the John Paul Jones like key parts and singing and like nailing everything. It's pretty fucking impressive.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty evident how talented she is present day, but even back then, I mean, you can see and knew that she had that talent, either the musicianship and so on.
Yeah, I feel like she's the real deal. Like Genuine, you know, they're
definitely
like the Super Bowl halftime show, I think it was, or some football games, you know. I'm pretty sure that was her vocals, you know. Like
right.
I felt like that was her actually singing, you know. So it's like most of the time that's a pre-recorded track, you know, you would think.
Right.
So
yeah, she's pretty authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, I gained a lot of respect for her from her football performances. I thought she nailed them. So
yeah, she did have a pretty good halftime show that year. Speaking of MGT and knowing where Michael Jackson's at, what are your thoughts on our present day government? Got any people that you care for or don't care for?
I do
passionately.
Not, actually, like the last time I cared about politics was Ron Paul 2012. Honestly, so it's like
gotcha.
I haven't paid attention at all.
Right.
You know, treat people right, and you know, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Stay out of my business, and that's
right.
all I care about.
Yeah, I don't blame you one bit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it seems like nowadays they're trying to go after fucking decent people. I don't really understand that.
Yeah.
You know, and people's civil liberties and all that fun stuff. But I think Ron Paul speaks on some of that, you know, libertarian mindset.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was a Paul bot for sure. I
forgot about that. Forgot about that terminology.
Well, and so I had there was a dumpster in Park Hills, and it had all this really thick, thick plywood in it, like scraps. So I dug it out and cut them into squares, and I made Ron Paul 2012 signs, and I had these 4-inch like Torx deck screws, and I was going around zipping those to street signs and telephone poles, and like, the Torx bit is not what your average city guy would have on him, and so
Yeah.
I dug those screws so deep into that thick plywood that it was a bitch to get those off. And those signs stuck around for like 8 or 9 months before the city could finally remove them.
That's
So
awesome.
it's like I won a small victory there. So
We're outside of the statute of limitations for anybody that's concerned too. So
yeah,
that's all
that
good.
wasn't me. I just lied. I lied.
What is the best tour package you'd say that you booked in the past? What was your favorite tour package that you booked?
My favorite. Oh shoot. So like I did book some really good ones. But every time I would get like 4 or 5 really good shows booked at a venue, the venue would close down. Like it seemed like it never failed. So we were booking all these really good tours in Metropolis, Illinois, at this little venue called Ezekiel's. And so I had this really awesome tour package with ringworm on it. And
nice.
Like I had to cancel that. That one would have been awesome. So like my favorite one that I booked that didn't happen was that Fear Before with Memphis Mayfire and Of Machines. That one never happened, but that one probably would have been my favorite.
Yeah. Big Fear Before fans over here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the most unique one I ever booked was, so it was in Rolla on this horse farm. It was Wretched. They had just signed to Victory Records at the time, and I forgot the exact situation, but something fell through and they needed a show. So we booked them on this horse farm in Rolla. And, like it was like pre-GPS days. So I had to meet them at the Rolla Walmart and they had to follow me out to this farm.
Wow.
So, Johnny Barton, I think you guys know him.
Yep.
He was with me. He was running sound. And, we had just probably 50 or 60 people out on this horse farm, like in the middle of like the woods. And, so there's this, what would go on to be a national touring act later. You know, they were freshly signed to Victory, if I remember right, and 4 or 5 local bands. So we had this packed show. Their merch table was like completely packed all night. It felt like a good situation to be in, And if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Definitely.
The night felt good. And it sounded good. Johnny had it dialed in. And, Wretched, they were professionals. They had their stage volume just perfect.
Right.
And, it was perfect.
Yeah.
That one was memorable. I booked one with, so it was Hell Within and the Autumn Offering. And that was the last show that the Autumn Offering played. Their singer quit after that show. And do you guys remember Antoine?
Yeah.
Okay, so Antoine was at that show. That he was like a good luck charm in St. Louis. If Antoine showed up to one of your shows, you knew it was going to be a good night. And so Antoine was there, and the exact opposite was true. Like it was bad luck that night. So the tour package bands got into this big fight. The lead singer of Autumn Offering quit. It was just, they were outside in the U City Loop outside the venue just fighting with a baseball bat.
Oh,
and
shit.
Here I am breaking up a fight, and just, it was awful.
Oh, man.
We booked, a memorable one. There was Destroy. They were on, I think they were on like this little subsidiary of Metal Blade Records. I can't remember what it was, but it was like they had this Iron Maiden cover, and this dude was like, they had this insane light show that they didn't tell anybody about. So they show up to the venue and they're setting these lights up, and it's just like phenomenal. And like just Viking type shit, and like I was just blown away. And
Yeah.
but this
Yeah.
dude is in like a Speedo. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, they were
Any
on
other questions?
black market. They were on black market activities. Destroy, destroy, destroy.
That's
I was
it.
trying to remember it myself, yeah, and I was having trouble remembering. I was wanting to say ferret, but destroy, destroy, destroy was on black market
You know,
activities.
they like it would have been different if I had expected it and like would have known what to expect. But here, this dude like comes out and just Speedos. I'm like,
Right,
ooh, look
right.
at that, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those guys were sweet back in the day. So that was your favorite shows. I got to ask you on the flip side, what's some of the worst shows what was some nightmare scenarios? Some funny personal anecdotes. What was some of the worst shows that you booked? Just because Murphy's Law, maybe type situations, or things of that ilk. What were some of your least favorite experiences you had to oversee?
Well, so we touched on it earlier that those Club Thump shows in Park
Mm-hmm.
Hills. We did one. It was a really good show. You know, the folks with the PA showed up on time. Everything was fine. Well, we were waiting to open doors, and I opened the door, and there was a lot of people that they had their hand already marked. And I
Mm.
was like, what's going on here? Well, long story short, there was a line of people around the building, and there was this girl outside with a Sharpie charging people $5 for a Sharpie mark. And then, so she was collecting money outside and basically
Shit.
took it and bailed.
Wow.
So it's like all these 20, 30, 40, I don't know, like a bunch of people had a Sharpie mark on their hand that had not paid, but they thought they did.
Damn.
Yeah.
And so, I don't remember how we handled that situation, but it was a learning experience, trust me. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Get something a little bit more unique.
yeah, we when we had a show that mattered, we did wristbands from that point on. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got another one for you.
okay.
If you had 3 artists and you could pick their entire catalog and that's all you could ever listen to again for the rest of your life, you don't get to listen to any new music, any old music, anything that you like. What are those 3 artists going to be?
Alice in Chains, Cancer Slug, Sisters of Mercy.
Okay.
It's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and Steve, I chose Cancer Slug because they've got 20 years worth of material that nobody's ever heard of, and they'll be releasing it soon, I'm sure, when they need money. So,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. I hear you.
but yeah, like I'm a big fan. So,
Good. Good. I'm glad to hear you champion somebody different and outside of the box of norm that anybody else might expect or be aware of, too.
oh
That's always a
yeah,
good thing.
like people don't expect me to be into some of the stuff I'm into, like gothy type stuff. They're like, I should like Five Finger Death Punch. Just that's the stereotypical hillbilly thing to like.
Right. No, I understand. Yeah, there's really something in every genre for everybody. I feel like
Right.
you just have to find that artist that intrigues you or it's something you like. A genre that I always shit on pretty routinely is country, but there's a lot of good country artists. Don't get me wrong. It's just I don't like the majority of them, and the most of
Yeah,
the country I like is like outlaw country type shit. Like Willie and Waylon and those cats, Hank Senior and Johnny Cash and
Right.
yeah,
all that stuff. The good shit, right?
yeah. Anybody who wants to see Willie better hurry up.
Yeah. No.
I know,
Sad.
90, man.
Yeah.
I just got my wife and my oldest daughter tickets to go see him in St. Louis here in about 3-4 weeks. He's playing, so
It'll be awesome.
it'll be my wife's second time, my oldest daughter's first and probably last time. But yeah, that was a bucket list artist for my wife. She got the chance to go a couple years ago, so she finally got to see him, and she's going to see him a second, probably last time.
Well, and that illegal marijuana, that'll help Willie's cause in Missouri too.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah.
he's already
That's
selling
right.
it here. So
I'm jealous. Like, I move away and they legalize weed. Come on. Like,
Yeah, I know. They knew Zach was leaving and they fucked you.
they did. And then a venue opens up like a quarter mile from where I lived for 20 years.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, right. So, Zach, what's something that you're currently watching? What's something you're a big fan of that you're maybe it's a TV show or a movie or series or docu-series? What's something that you're really into right now, invested in?
so I just watched that AMC Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah, how was
And
that?
I thought it was incredible.
Yeah.
I've heard good
Yeah, I'm
things.
here to say I've been
Yeah.
reading good things about it. I really loved that
Yeah,
movie.
I
so.
mean, like, you know, a lot of Anne Rice's vampires have traditionally been, where they would go both ways, So
Yeah,
a lot of the Anne Rice purists online, they're pretty accepting of the reimagining of it, But a lot of people who
yeah,
are, a little bit more conservative, they don't like all the kind of homosexual tones of it. But who
yeah,
cares really?
Right.
Like,
right.
it's an incredible show. I loved it.
Good.
It was
I
awesome.
mean,
So
anybody that saw the Neil Jordan one, the Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt one, I mean, there was definitely illusions of that type of relationship taking place betwixt the two of them.
Right,
I don't think
exactly.
that
That
they
was kind of the
ever explicitly
right,
said it,
right.
but there was definitely overtones there,
yeah,
and it was a
absolutely.
very campy presentation. So, I mean, I will say
Yeah.
things go over a lot of conservative people's heads. So,
Oh yeah. Well,
you know,
there are no illusions in this one. It's straight up. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and it. Don't get me wrong, incredible show. Loved it.
yeah.
I need to watch it again. That's how good it is.
Oh
So
shit.
Oh wow.
yeah,
Yeah, honestly, I forgot all about it, and I was hearing really good things about it. I might even seen you talking about it specifically while you were watching it. But I do need to watch that one. It totally fell off my radar altogether.
yeah, yeah. Like I need to get caught up on the Mandalorian. Like I think I'm on season 2, episode 2 or something.
Yeah,
Like I'm slacking. So
this newest season has its moments, but I think it's its weakest season overall. What do you think,
Yeah,
Josh?
absolutely. I think the writing
Yeah.
is definitely by far the weakest season.
I think the Star Wars universe is starting to get a little bit of what's going on with the Marvel universe, kind of the oversaturation, and
Absolutely.
people are kind of taking it for granted and kind of falling off. But
Well,
there's a few things in the Star Wars universe coming up still yet that I'm excited about.
yeah, and they're trying to make too much work in the Star Wars universe. Like they're trying to make all this stuff tie and connect in with the new with the old, and it's just seems like they're doing too much.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
And then and the forced bridging of the gaps between the original trilogy versus the, I guess, prequels, episode 3, 1 through 3, and then now they're doing this gap between, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and then all the way up to the Disney Ridley trilogy, the newer ones. So now they're filling that gap. So yeah, it can get confusing for the casuals, I guess is my point I'm trying to make
yeah.
too. So that I think that turns people off.
Oh, I am very much a casual. Like I am not like an intense, super knowledgeable Star Wars nerd like I should be. But
I was kind of like a Star Trek nerd. That's kind of what I was raised on, and I came to Star Wars right before, when the episode 1 through 3 came out. I was a adolescent or something in that ballpark age wise, teenager, preteen, something. But I don't know. That's my dad wasn't really into it, so by proxy, I kind of wasn't. My cousin super into it. I remember all the collectible Mountain Dew cans and shit. My cousin would collect all the Mountain Dew cans, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is kind of silly, at the time. And I eventually, right after my daughter was born, Force Awakens was coming out. They had my first daughter, that is, and she started to show an interest in movies and stuff. And we're like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to take a chance. We're going to take her to go see Force Awakens. She loved it. She had an amazing movie experience. Just watching her at the movies just kind of recaptured my love for movie going and things like that. Just to kind of see the twinkle in her eye. And then I kind of got it. the Star Wars thing, because that's, I mean, what it was when it originally came out. It, predates me when they originally came out, but I kind of fell in love with the Star Wars universe, and I'm a fan nowadays, and try to give it a chance.
Oh yeah, like my thing was Lord of the Rings. Like, oh man,
Oh, it's good too.
Yeah,
It's good shit.
great.
yeah, yeah. I'm a really big fan of, like, when Aragorn goes into the mountain, he's like talking to the dead. Like,
Yeah,
I'm like, he's like, bitch, you're gonna come fight for me, like,
right,
because I'm the captain of this ship.
right, right,
Yeah. So, like, just the balls it took for him to go inside the mountain. It's like, it's just like,
right.
wow, okay, that's my dude right there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. Yeah, Lord of the Rings. That's another really good franchise, and I think widely considered of the best movie franchises that are out there.
oh
For
yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Zach, man, you've been so generous with your time today, and I appreciate the conversation and going into uncharted territory at times and somewhat charted territory.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Where can people find you and stay in tune with you and everything that you've got going on?
Facebook. No, like, so I just bought cranialnerveus.com. So if
Okay.
you want to log on to that, you'll find like a GoDaddy Park site that's has nothing on it. But you can find all of our releases on Bandcamp, Cranial Nerve US. There's a couple compilation CDs on there that you can download for free. Listen all you want, whatever.
Awesome.
We're getting ready to put out a tour sampler for Blanket of M.
Okay.
They have some ties to the mineral area. The Drudge is on my Bandcamp page. That is actually Josh from Broke Neck's side project. So it's
Okay.
like a sludgy metal type project that we put out.
Nice.
But yeah, like all the the common criminals I'm on, Instagram, and easy to
Right.
find.
Anybody that's watching or listening today, we will definitely have Zach's information and where to follow in the episode details if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube when the on-demand drop video comes, all of those links will be in the episode details as well. You're going to be able to jump to the Bandcamp for Cranial Nerve. You'll be able to jump to the various social media sites so you can stay up to date with postings, ongoing shows, tour packages, and all the fun stuff that Zach's talked about that he's got in the works tonight, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Yes, our pleasure, sir. And Zach, it's always a good time catching up with you, man, and much success to you in the cranial nerve business going forward.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. This was like 7 people before you guys were like, hey, come on. Like, no, I don't want to do a podcast. So it's like, you finally talked me into
Hell
it.
yeah.
So this was my first one. So
I had to work on you a little bit. Thank you very much. Hopefully it was a pleasant experience for you.
Oh, yeah, it was cool. Sorry, I'm not better looking. Sorry.
I mean, look at us, man. You're a 10 compared to us, dude.
Yeah, we turn people off constantly. That's why our numbers are going down, because we started adding video to everything. We let people's imaginations wander beforehand.
Yeah, hey, if they just heard audio for me, ooh.
Thank you all for sticking around after the break. Josh and I wanted to take the opportunity to once again thank ZACH WEISS for his appearance on the show today.
Absolutely.
Cranial Nerve. Zach is a longtime friend, as we mentioned in our open and discussions with him routinely, and I hope that today's conversation with him kind of conveyed the fact that just a super solid, good dude, and I really enjoyed, if nothing else, catching up with him, but certainly kind of spotlighting his efforts, particularly in the middle area.
Right.
I would consider him a huge influence on me personally, and some of the decision making and how I would even run shows and things like that whenever I was booking shows. And he was just like a really good influence, and everything's kind of monkey see, monkey do to some extent in our area. And I'm definitely a guy who learns on the fly and learns by watching others. And there was little to no greater example to learn from than ZACH WEISS, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, he had such a big impact on the music scene, and that music scene had such a big impact on a lot of our lives. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
definitely led to who we are today. So definitely got to
yeah,
pay homage to those people that helped make those things materialize and come to fruition. So yeah, super
most,
thankful to have him on the show to talk about that because, like I said, it's just such an important time in so many people's lives. So cool to
yeah.
talk to him.
And I think he's a guy that, like I mentioned in the conversation, that really doesn't get his roses that he should or his flowers. He has always been kind of more of the behind the scenes guy. He's not like wanting to
Right.
get out to make public speeches or be a character or anything like that. He's been a very low key guy, and I think that was kind of maybe some of his apprehension on coming on to the show too.
Yeah.
So I was glad I got him to come out of his shell a little bit so people could see his personality because he's a super fucking good dude.
Super nice guy.
For real.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That is one special dude I will never forget. That's for sure. So, Josh, let's talk about what we got going on for the good folks. And we have to start that conversation with the very next thing that we're going to be doing in real time, in real life. And that is the Punk Rock Flea Market, STL Punk Rock Flea Market. It is the fourth one that they're having up in St. Louis. It's going to be happening at KIENER Plaza.
Or KIENER.
KIENER Plaza.
I've
Yeah.
never said that right. What did I say? Keeney?
Bikini Plaza.
Bikini
Plaza.
Bottom. We'll be at Bikini Bottom with Papa Patrick and Sandy, and Mr. Krabs,
yeah,
and the rest of the LSD.
100%. So that's going to be Saturday, guys, and I believe it starts at 11 a.m. It is an all ages event. So that means bring the family. If the family is usually the excuse you don't get out to stuff, it doesn't count for this one, guys and gals.
Yeah,
we've got various vendors, and we've talked about them. Glamgoria, Terror Tacos is going to be involved. The vendor list and the artists that'll be performing at said event, the St. Louis Punk Rock Flea Market, is all over our stuff tagged. We're going to go heavy in the next few days with some social media campaigns, posts, shares, all that stuff of everything that's going on with the Punk Rock Flea Market. And we're very happy to be associated with this event. I know that, a lot of punk rock's going to be happening, but as Don mentioned, who we spoke to previously from the record space, who's helping organize this event, there's going to be things outside of just your general punk rock expectations when it comes to music, and there's going to be things outside of that when it comes to the vendors as well. Maxine 13, former guest of the show, is going to be set up there too.
Brilliant artist.
Yep. So we're really looking forward to the various vendors and the various talents that'll be on display. We'll be there.
Yeah,
we will hopefully be setting up somewhere near the stage and capturing some of those artists for some artist interviews and spotlights, and hopefully get out there and speak to some vendors and do some live streaming. So I think a lot of what our content's going to be is exclusively just kind of live streaming that event that day. We're going to capture some video footage to maybe put together some highlight reel type stuff and be posting that at a later date, a few weeks down the road. But specifically, if you want to catch all the action, get with us on the live streams. We're going to have artist interviews. We're going to have merchant interviews. We're going to have, when I say artists, band interviews. We're going to have actual artists, such in the vein of a Maxine.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll
figurative artists.
Hear from some of our former guests. So.
yeah. Even if it's a hello and hey, this is them.
Yeah.
And we're meeting in person for the first time. So, really looking forward to the event. I think it's got something for everybody. And there's so many hands coming together. My understanding is the parking situation to get there, even as a patron, is not your usual nightmarish scenario in St. Louis. So don't let that be a stopper as well. Don't let that be something that keeps you from attending this event. If you got nothing going on this Saturday, hey, it's my first day of vacation, guys. And I'm foregoing vacation at least a day to attend this event. So if nothing else, feel sorry for me and come out and visit me.
Yeah.
All right.
Come squeeze that ass.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's plenty of it now. Because believe me, this back issue and everything else has got me laid up a little bit more, so I'm a little less active. And man, I got that sweet tooth, especially as I'm getting older, man. I don't know what the fuck it is, but I gotta have my little snacks before bed.
Oh, well, at least you're doing better than me. I'm doing it in the middle of the night still. I'm still night eating like a motherfucker. I'm gaining 30 pounds every week, so.
Hey man, the struggle is real
Yeah.
with that for sure.
Dad bod supreme.
Punk Rock Flea Market STL 4 is this Saturday, May 27th. Come check it out. We look forward to seeing you guys. 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. So you ain't got to be there all day. There's plenty to do to keep you there all day. But great opportunity, especially if you've never taken your kids to a concert.
Yeah.
This is going to be the chance.
Yeah.
Bring them out. Let them get that experience, hearing some live music. It's outside, so the sound will dissipate if that's a concern of yours. Take whatever precautions you need to as a parent. But Punk Rock Flea Market 4 in St. Louis this Saturday, May 27th. Let's talk about what we got going on after that. So I mentioned I'm on vacation, so we're going to have that on-demand drop. So anybody who tuned in for the live feed with Joey Rackavan last Sunday, thank you for doing so. I feel like Joey and I did a lot of justice to some awesome female musicians in the industry over the years. I mean, we even went back to artists in the 1940s and gave them shots out. And I should also recognize the fact that Brandon Stewart, routine contributor to the show, it's been a little while since his last contributions to the show, but he hopped on for a brief period and threw in 5 picks of his own. And so tune in for that. And I think that Brandon had some very good picks and only had one crossover with myself. And so he had a lot of unique picks and added a little bit of variety that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So I appreciate Brandon and him hopping in at the last minute and throwing some stuff out there on his busy trip back from Dallas, I believe, all the way back to Abilene. So that's a good almost 4-hour ride.
Oh, damn.
And so he made the call and called in and helped us out a little bit there for a short period. But that full episode will drop in the preceding days. So this one's going to happen first. You're going to have that on June 1st. And the reason that it's coming on June 1st and why it's so special is the fact that that's the start of Women's Month on the ATI Podcast. June is dedicated totally to women on the ATI Podcast. And we're speaking with women across the board, across various trades, skill sets, and so forth. But we thought things, just talking about female musicians, because that's a lot of what we do here, and we're musicians and things of that ilk too, fans of music. We got things kicked off with that discussion. Right after that, that's going to lead us into our next guest, and we'll be back live with you for episode 18 of this season, and that's going to be our 71st episode overall.
Which is insane.
We're going to be, I know, live with Jackie Kelly, the actress. And you've heard Jackie's name in some of our former episodes with Douglas Wicker as well as Mondo Franco. Jackie is a rising actress out of the St. Louis area. Not to say that she only works in St. Louis. She's worked all over the continental United States, as well as I believe she had some, they had to take actually some shooting sabbaticals with Mondo's projects because she was going abroad for some opportunities as well. So looking forward to speaking to her about her various opportunities to date. Today, I shared a GoFundMe, or I should say Indiegogo project involving Jackie Kelly and what she's got going on. And I'm going to pull up those details now real quickly as a reminder. They've got a film that they are trying to crowdfund right now, and I'm really looking forward to talking to them about that because that's just a whole different part of the industry that we haven't really dove deep in on. Again,
Right.
some mentions in passing. Mondo had mentioned that he's going to be working on crowdfunding some projects in the future, and he'll be forwarding those things to us so that we can include those in the future. But Wake Not the Dead. Wake Not the Dead. Search for that on Indiegogo to read and see the details. Look at some of the teasers that they have for things that they're working on with regards to that film. They're crowdfunding that film. And we're going to talk about Wake Not the Dead for a good portion of our conversation as well to help get them some steam and some support and some people donating to that cause. But I think the movie looks great already. I think it captures some of those 80s slasher or horror vibes already, even with some of the stills that they've shared. So that's just kind of right up my alley. And really looking forward to hear what that's going to be all about and looking forward to contributing to that cause too. And then we've got a whole group of awesome women coming after that. We've got Ann Wood, the artist out of Texas. We've got professional wrestlers. We've got business owners. So again, we're going to be sharing those agendas with an updated agenda so everybody knows what's coming down the pipeline. Josh, how you feeling about this?
I'm excited, man. I think we got a lot of cool stuff cooking, and I'm really excited for this weekend. Hopefully we'll get to see some familiar faces or even some new faces. I think that'll be great. And then the whole Ladies Month thing, man. You know me, I'm all about the ladies. So let's pay homage to them ladies. They deserve it. Like the ladies, man.
I'm a fifth aim with the thumb.
Yeah, and the Cavaliers.
It's a Cavalier. We'll have the fifth amateurs and Cavaliers at the booth this weekend.
Yeah.
And many more. Good discussions, good hangs.
Yeah.
And stay hydrated out there, folks. The weather's starting to warm up, so come prepared.
Yeah.
To spend a few hours, and we'll be happy to shout you out on the pod or anything else we got going on.
There's one more thing I did want to add real quick, and we talked about the recreational stuff a little bit with him. I've been going into these dispensaries a lot, and these bud tenders, man, they've been telling me horror stories about people not being very friendly to them because of marijuana shortages. And I just wanted to say, these people have nothing to do with how much marijuana supply is in circulation in Missouri. Don't go into these dispensaries and chew out these bud tenders like it's their fault or they have anything to do with it. This is a brand new industry in the state, and it's ridiculous. You guys need to pick and choose who you're going to bitch at, because most of the time you're just picking on somebody that has no fucking control over the situation. So I just wanted to add that in there before we got off the call, because that's been driving me crazy. I got a lot of friends that work in the industry. We've interviewed a friend of ours that works in the industry. It's just, just be nice. Be nice. Be nice. Yeah. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. And if you don't take anything else from this episode, take Josh's PSA to heart. So
yeah.
Treat your bud tenders how you want to be treated, without question. Josh, I think we had a great conversation with Zach today, and I'm really looking forward to what we got in the works. We'll see everybody at the Punk Rock Flea Market. For this week, I am Barrett at Barry Insane on Instagram and Twitter, and he is Josh _Josh on Instagram, and we are out of time. Until next time, good night and good luck.
And stay safe out there.
I'll be your butcher, rip the meat from the bone. I'll be your blood-soaked lover once I get you alone. I'll be your midnight stalker creeping into your home. I'll be your butcher, and you'll be begging for more. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. I'll be your sadist, exploring your pain. I'll peel the skin off slowly so you don't miss a thing. I love you more than your God, 'cause he don't come when you pray. I'll be your sadist. You're gonna feel everything. Pretty darling, why are you screaming? I haven't even cut you yet. You see, my heart is really pounding and my filthy cock is throbbing, 'cause I can't get you out of my head. No, I can't get you out of my head. I'm your redeemer, so confess all your crimes. I'll be your inquisition, cutting through all the lies. I'll be your sweet death angel, crawling deep in your thighs. I'll be whatever you want, as long as you wanna die. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. I'll be your butcher for the funeral feast. I'll be your blood-soaked lover with the eyes of the beast. I'll be the demon who has come to wrap you up in a sheet and leave your leftover pieces at the edge of the street. Just like that whore you call mother, who was there the first time that you cried. I'll be the last one here to wipe away the tears. Tell me, baby, are you ready to die? Now tell me, baby, are you ready to die? I'll be your butcher, I'll be your butcher, I'll be your butcher. Yeah, I'll be your butcher, baby.
Hey, this is Josh from ATI Podcast. For show updates and news about the podcast, follow us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ATI Podcast 22, on Twitter at podcast_ATI, on Instagram at the ATI Podcast, on TikTok at ATI Podcast. DMs are always welcome. Have a question for the show? You can always email us at atipodcastquestions@gmail.com. Stay safe out there.
This is Barrett from the ATI Podcast. Each week, Josh and I discuss current events, pop culture, music, TV, movies, politics, sports. Nothing is out of bounds. You can also tune in to learn about rising artists, small businesses. Whether it's music, graphic design, filmmaking, or even a brick-and-mortar mom-and-pop shop, we will be spotlighting folks and their endeavors. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Anchor, or anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. Just search ATI Podcast. We would like to thank you for your continued support, and as always, please stay safe out there.